It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay. Hi, Kalee. How are you?
Hello, Douglas. I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for coming on. Nice to have you with us. So today we're going to be talking about finance, and specifically finance for women. Is it different for like advice that you would give women to advice you would give men?
Good question, and no. But I think it is really important for more people to, I guess, specifically share, when it comes to investing in money, to have that focus on women, because the industry has been very male dominated for quite some time. So the whole financial industry, the career path of financial advisor, again, there's a lot of men in that role. There's only about 15 to 20% female advisors. So I think what has happened as a result of that is it's been very catered to men and focused on men, just how it's even talked about and how it's marketed. So I think, to help change that and to bring women into the mix to feel comfortable and feel like they belong and they're part of the conversation, is that we really need to create that female focus. So no, it's not any different than the conversations I would have with men, but I think, again, putting it out there as a comfortable, safe space for women. So for instance, before COVID hit, I used to do lunch and learns at my office boardroom for just women on money topics. And it drew in very large crowds of women, because I think there is this idea, or this, again, it's just that women don't feel as comfortable sometimes in those boardrooms when there's other men and things like that in the room. Nothing against them. It's just that we go to that feeling of like, is this a dumb question? Or, like, should I be asking this, or things like that. So I think by creating it and really branding it for women, it's just creating that space for women to come and talk about this stuff, because money affects men and women the same, and so women have to feel comfortable and be in that conversation too. So I think by creating that focus on women, I'm just trying to make it more of a open space to welcome women and make it accessible and engaging for women, and try to make it fun and interesting. Like, as a fellow woman, I feel like I can talk in terms of how we feel about money and what we're going through. So yes, good question. And it's not, we don't do different investing necessarily for men and women.
Okay. Are the women that were in that group that you were talking about, is it primarily single women, or are they married women, or like single parents?
Yeah, good question as well. And you're right. It is a lot of independent women, so financially independent women, okay. Whether it be women that are just, single and want to discuss their finances, and they're, of course, in the driver's seat of their finances and wanting to make good financial decisions. I work with and talk to a lot of women who have gone through divorce, and again, unfortunately, there is that scenario that often plays out where women aren't as involved in the money conversations and the decisions sometimes in their marriages. So come divorce time, and then, sort of post-divorce, there's a lot of women that feel like they're behind, that they don't that they don't know a lot, or they feel like they're not necessarily making the right decisions, or that they're not going to be okay. That, like, again, that whole, they think they're going to be eating cat food or something like that in retirement. By all means, that should not happen. And that's not necessarily the case. But it's, again, if you haven't been involved and part of the conversation, it's a lot to take on all at once. And so, yeah, it's a lot of women in different situations, gone through divorce, just financially independent, maybe lost their spouses due to them passing away as well. So we do know that the statistics show women do tend to outlive their partners and live longer than men. So there does come a point where women sometimes near, retirement years and things like that and beyond, that they're thrown into the driver's seat of their finances.
It's funny because I know traditionally it was the men who controlled the finances in the house. In my family, it was the other way around. My father basically just gave his paycheck every week to my mother. And in fact, if he needed money, he'd have to ask her for it because she would control everything in the house and in terms of the finance. And I always thought that was funny. With me, it's a pretty much a 50-50 split with my wife. She takes care of hers, I take care of mine, and we both take care of ours. So, it's always a conversation if we're going to do something big, if we're going to buy a house or if we're going to move or whatever. But, we sort of manage our own, because we're both self-employed. So, I would take care of my business, she takes care of hers, but our money together is collective. I wanted to ask you what you think the biggest mistake is that people are making, maybe not specifically women, but generally in financial investing. What do you think is the one that you see the most?
I think it has to do with not doing anything, so that almost like paralysis or lack of action. I would say that's the biggest mistake people are making. So there's a variety of reasons behind that, and probably great reasons. I'm not, downplaying any of the reasons for why maybe you've felt like you've ignored or sort of put your finances to the side or the back burner. But the best thing you can do when it comes to money and investing and growing is take action and do something. We always talk about, doing something today is much better than doing something a year from now or 5 years from now. And people, though, often get stuck in the trap of okay, I'll look at my finances and I'll deal with it when, maybe when I'm officially paid off my credit card, or when I get that raise, or, when this change happens. But if we just keep pushing it off, that's the absolute worst thing you can do for your money. Because when we look at compounding, there's all sorts of charts we can look at, if you started at this age or versus if you started starting in your 30s versus starting in your 40s or 50s. The differences are massive. So any little bit counts. Even if you're in a spot in your financial journey where you're I can only put away $25 a month to invest and put it towards my long-term savings. Well, $25 is more than nothing. It's absolutely better than nothing. So doing that is fabulous. It's that taking action is the best thing you can do. So if that's the action you can take, fabulous. If the action you can take is put an extra payment on your credit card, amazing. If the action is put a little bit aside for an emergency fund, feeling, if you're feeling a bit on edge with your finances, with everything going on in the world, that's fabulous. So if you can do those action steps, that's the best thing you can do for yourself and with your money. But again, what I see time and again is people that are putting it off and waiting for the future. And with women, that's a big one that oftentimes what's holding them back is that feeling I don't know enough, or that lack of knowledge. So feeling money isn't my thing, numbers aren't my thing. I better learn this first and then I'll do something about it. Well, do something about it now and learn along the way, I would say, because again, the best thing you can do for yourself is taking action when it comes to money and investing. So I would say that's the biggest mistake is just not doing anything, putting it off, and delaying. Do
you think people are afraid of the stock market? Because it's different than when I was working. We didn't have the wild swings like we do now. A lot of it, and this is just my opinion that I contribute to, everybody can do it. Everybody can go online and trade stock now. That wasn't available before the internet. Before the internet, you had to go through a broker. You had to do it in a more traditional manner, and it kept all of the people, the day traders, away. So the market wasn't as volatile as it is now. When people see, 500 to 1,000 point swings on any given day, it tends to scare people off from investing.
Yeah.
Are you finding that to be true, that a lot of people are afraid of the markets?
Yeah, I have in my book, which we can, mention or we can chat about in a little bit, but I have a chapter that's called Investing Doesn't Have to Be Scary, because I think it's scary. I don't know what about it or how we've created it this way, but you're right. it's become this like fearful, volatile roller coaster ride that people are kind of like, ooh, like, taking a step back from and being like, I that doesn't feel comfortable at all. Seeing those big swings, and that it's just a matter of the markets and volatility. So it might not necessarily be vastly different. Like looking at it as percentage change movements is really what we need to be doing, saying, okay, how much percentage change did it have? But you're right, like a year like this year, it's been very volatile. And the number of days we had where it's more than 2% swings, more than 3% swings, 4% swings, we haven't seen that level since probably the financial crisis. So by all means, yes, we've seen a lot more volatility this year. It doesn't, though, necessarily mean that we need to run for the hills and avoid investing altogether. So it just comes back to the whole, okay, what can we control? The markets are going to do what the markets do. And unfortunately, we don't have the ability to change that. Again, it would be nice. It would be nice if I had like a crystal ball and we could predict what's to come. All those things would be great. But that's not the case. So we again have to go back to, okay, it's not in my control, but what is the purpose of investing? It's to grow your wealth. It's to have your money working for you by compounding. And that compounding happens over years. It happens, over 5-year periods, 10-year, 20-year. So in those timeframes, there's going to be volatility and there's going to be the ups and downs. But if we can zoom out, if we can see how compounding year over year starts to build wealth, then we go, okay, there still is a point to investing. But yes, it's scary, it's volatile. So what can I do? Well, I can focus on the things that are in my control. What is in my control? I can save on an ongoing basis. I can add to the markets just gradually, bit by bit. So instead of putting a large lump sum in all at once and then seeing the markets go down, 4% or 5% tomorrow, which wouldn't feel comfortable, what if I add every time I have a paycheck come in, I put away a certain amount into my savings or into my retirement fund or my tax sheltered investment account, and just have that ongoing and adding to the markets gradually. That's one thing you can do that probably feels a little bit more comfortable. So again, it's just going back to what is in my control, because we can look at the markets every day and that's what I do for a living and I find it interesting. But for anyone else, I'm like, that would cause an ulcer. It's just like, ooh.
Yeah, so I think so.
There's still value to investing. And the reason we do it, again, is to build wealth. And it has proven that it does. When we zoom out and look at the performance of the stock market, it's an upward sloping line. There's dips, there's valleys in that are big market events like recessions and, things like that. But again, the long-term story is still that investing has always built wealth for people over those longer term time frames.
Okay. We are out of time, unfortunately. We've got to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's quickly mention your books that are coming out in 2023. Go ahead. Just tell us the titles real quick.
Yeah, so I have a kid's picture book coming out in 2023. It's called Money-Wise Mabel's Bursting Bank, and it's about a little girl learning about savings once her piggy bank gets full. So I believe in financial literacy. Okay. I think we need to start early having these conversations. So what better time to start than with our children? And then as well, I have a nonfiction book coming out for women called Make Money Your Thing, and it is all about building confidence in women when it comes to money and investing.
Okay, great. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do. You can. It's kind of in the works right now, so it will be. Okay. It will probably be available though. In the next coming weeks. So it'll be my first name, last name.com. So Kalee Boisvert, all one word.com.
Okay. Well, Kalee, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you, Douglas.